Hello everyone, Caroline here. I hope you all having a great summer. Today I want to share 10 cards that I created with this Luxe Paper Block from Action, and this block was gifted to me. So let's get started. Card number 1. So for my first card, I'm choosing a square card base, and I cut out 2 pieces of pattern paper and 1 piece of black cardstock, and I have a bunch of die cuts here. I cut out one of the vellum sentiments, and as I usually do with those vellums, I put them on a piece of double-sided paper here, and then I glue my vellum on it, and then I'm gluing this on a piece of cardstock. And then I'm cutting it to size. So now I'm starting creating my background here. I'm roughing up the edge from this large piece, and I'm adding a little bit of black soot all around, and then I'm gluing it just with wet glue on my card base. And I cut it a little bit smaller. The main card is 5.5 by 5.5 inch. Then I have this pattern paper with the flowers, and I'm actually putting a little bit of meant to be, that's that mint color from Catherine Pooler, around the edge, and then I'm gluing this onto the black cardstock here, and the black is really a contrast color that goes through the whole 10 cards that I'm creating. Now I have this little die cut here with the card, and I'm also adding, first I'm removing those notches, and then I'm adding also a little bit of black soot around it, just to get rid of those wide edges. And here I have this piece with the flowers, and cutting away a little bit of the extra background, and also use the leftover ink on that dauber and go around the edge here of those pieces. Now it's time to assembling my card. So I'm figuring out how I want to lay those flowers. I want them to be kind of behind the card, and I'm putting a little bit of I put foam tape behind the card, and then I am placing it right on top of the flowers, and then I am gluing the flowers to my background. And then I'm adding those little white flowers in between the other 2 pieces. I have this little butterfly here, and I decided to add this to the card. And then I framed my sentiment onto black cardstock and cut it to size, and then I'm gluing this on top of the card. So I'm covering up that license plate. I thought that sentiment is just too small, and then I'm adding a little bit of Nouveau drops, and then a little bit of stickles for the final touch, and then also a little bit of glossy accent on the metal of the lights and on the metal on the front of the car. And this is my finished card. Card number 2. So for my second card, I'm using a card base with a scallop edge, and I also have a piece of dark gray cardstock that I rounded the corners, and that gray matches perfectly that gray in the pattern paper. Then I cut out a piece of vellum with one of the action dies that I have, and have a little vellum here with the sentiment and piece of metal silver cardstock, and I'm using those two inks here. One is London Fog Memento and the other one is Grapefruit Pink, one of the Shark Versamark Shark inks. So I'm adding my gray piece and I went around with my dauber to give it a little edge. And then I'm doing the same here with the other piece with that pinkish color. And then I am adding a little bit of sparkle with one of my watercolors here, that Pelmut watercolor. And then I'm going around the pieces again with some gray. And then I'm adding this piece of pattern paper with some foam tape, lift this up from the gray background. And then I'm adding a little bit of double-sided tape to my vellum piece, and I'm adding this on top. And I will cover the vellum so you won't see the double-sided tape here. Now I'm arranging my pieces here, and I cut out the same manner the sentiment, glued it on double-sided tape, and then glued it on this piece of silver cardstock. Now I'm arranging my stars here. This is gonna be like a baby card, and I'm just gluing this with some foam tape, and some of the stars I'm just gluing on just flat. First I'm adding my sentiment, and this will also keep my vellum in place. And then I'm adding one of the big stars. And then I'm adding my little stars. Now I'm using my glossy accent, and I'm adding this to the dots of one of the clouds and also on the stars, and I also add some stickles. And here is the finished card. Card 3. So for this card I'm using some craft paper, and I cut out two pieces with this die, and then one piece with a little bit smaller in the pattern paper, and I glued them together. I made a score on the back piece and then put a little bit of double-sided tape on the top and glued them together to create my card base. And then I have some die cuts here from this set, and I also cut out this die here from Action, and a couple of leaves because that block really didn't have any leaves, so I cut out some of the leaves with this Action die. And I also have a scrap piece of black cardstock. Now I'm starting out by just put a little bit of ink around the edge, and this time I'm just using a walnut stained. And then I am adding also a little bit of gold watercolor splatters, very fine, and I'm gluing my sentiment on a piece of black cardstock, and I will cut this out. And unfortunately I lost my footage how I put it all together, but here is the end result. And as you can see, I just added the flowers in the middle and the leaves around it, and then add the other pieces on top. Now here I wanted to show you this card size wise fits perfectly into a 5x7 envelope, and so it's an easy thing to send this. Now this is card number 4 now, and for this card I'm using again a square card base, and I'm cutting out this front piece with a die that's from Action as well, and then I'm gluing a piece of black cardstock to my base here, and it's a little bit smaller, cut it out a little bit smaller, and then I'm getting out my mica magic here, and I just want to add a little bit of color to the flowers, so I'm using a little bit and then just rubbing it on top of the flowers. I just want to bring in a little bit of color. And I'm kind of matching the colors that come in the die cuts. Now here's a die cut piece and that has exactly the size and fits perfectly into that cutout here. And I will glue this on with liquid glue, and I went also around the edge with some ink. And then I have those other pieces here, and I'm also going around those pieces with the ink, and then I'm arranging my pieces and glue them together. And then I'm adding some foam tape to add it on top. And I am not a fan of those gloves that were on those boots, so I decided to cover them up, and I used those two pieces for that. And here I'm just securing everything with liquid glue. And then I found this pretty sentiment in the die cuts, and I'm just gluing it right on top of this rectangle piece. Then I'm adding some stickles to the dots, and also add some nuve drops into the middle of the flowers. And of course my glossy accent, and this time I'm adding this to the boots, and this will give it a very nice sheen, as you can see here. And then for final touch, I'm adding also some yellow, soft yellow nuve drops here. Actually, I said dream drops. And here's my finished card. Card 5. So for card number 5, I'm cut out 2 pieces of pen and paper, and for one piece I'm used that squiggly edge die from Action. I have 2 stickers that I put glued onto a piece of white cardstock, and I have a bunch of die cuts here, and I'm creating another baby card. Now here I'm going around, and this time I'm using the walnut stain, and I'm adding this to a white card base this time. And again, I cut it a little bit smaller so you have that white border. And then I'm adding a little bit more ink to the black cardstock, and actually it's a dark gray cardstock. And then I'm adding this to the top part, and I'm gluing on the other pattern paper. I lift it up with some foam tape on top. Now I have this bucket here, wooden bucket, and I cut away the top part because I want to glue the bear that comes behind it, so it's supposed to look like he's kind of coming out of that bucket or stuck in that bucket, if you will. So glue this together, and then I'm adding this die cut that looks like a swoop, like a paint swoop, and I'm using this to shadow the bear to have more contrast so you can see him better on the background. And then this little bow, with this little bow I'm covering up the leftover that's from the other die cut piece that was from the bear. Now I have these little leaves, and I'm adding them to the right and to the left of the bucket, and then I cut out my sticker here, and I'm adding them to the bucket and glue them on with liquid glue. I'm adding again a little bit of dream drops in that soft pink color to match that color from the bow, and of course I'm adding my glossy accent to the bow. And here is the finished card. Card 6. So for card number 6, I am using, I created myself a mini slimline card, which is very trendy at the moment. And this card base is 3 by 6 inches, so it's perfect for those 6 by 6 paper blocks. So I cut out, or I ripped out a piece of that pattern paper that I had left, and I add with the stencil some patterning or some extra texture, and also roughed up the edge and also go around with this mint colored ink. And then I'm gluing that right on top of my background here. And then I have this other piece that I had left, and I actually rough up the edge there too, and do the same thing and add this to the top right to my background. Now I have those pieces here. I use that little typewriter. I have those circles, and I have this round piece of pattern paper, and I'm just adding this to the bottom. And then I'm trying to find out how to arrange this. I created myself another sentiment with one of the vellums, and again I glued this on white cardstock and then framed it on a piece of black cardstock, and I'm adding my hearts with some foam tape. So this card has a lot of dimension going on. Then I have those leftover glue dots here with the gold sparkle on it, and I thought the color fits perfectly. Last touch is a little bit of glossy accent on those typewriter top, and here is the finished card. Now I created myself an envelope for this card, as you can see here, and I used this 123 punch board for this, and so this is very handy to, you can use any envelope score tablet that you have, but you need to create yourself an envelope for this. This is not the standard size, but it's easy to do this. So let's move on to card 7. So here I start out with kind of like an orangey color card base, and I cut out a piece of gray cardstock here. That will be my first layer, and I glue this on. And then I have a piece of pattern paper, and I have those one of the die cuts that has the house, and then there were 2 stickers on the sticker sheet. And then I was deciding what kind of a sentiment I want to use, and I just thought this time to celebrate, it's kind of matches better, and I stamped out 4 of those little flowers because I wanted something to soften the whole look. So I just used those and cut them out, and then just I inked them with the same inks that I had already out, and matches the paper. And then here I went around that pattern paper, and this one going to be my second layer, and I'm going to glue this just flat with liquid glue on top, and then I added some foam tape to that die cut that has the frame with the house, and I glue this in the middle. And then I cut out my stickers here, and I'm glue them to the right and to the left of the little house here. Then I changed my mind again because I thought this time to celebrate is just too big for this card. So I stamped out another sentiment and framed it on black cardstock, and then I'm using these little flowers to embellish the top and the bottom a little bit, and I added also this banner, string of banners to the top. And then for final touch, I'm adding a little bit of Nuvo drops or dream drops to the middle of the flowers, and some gold coast Nuvo drops as well, or glitter drops. And this is the finished card. Card 8. Alright, we're doing another baby card here. So I have this die in my stash from Action, and I really wanted to try this out. So I cut out that biggest die with a piece of white cardstock, and here I just wanted to see how that stands when you put it up, and it's actually standing on the bottom, left side. So when I do my design, I'm keeping that in mind. Then I cut out this black cardstock in the smaller one, but only halfway, and the same with my pattern paper, and I cut this to size, and I'm gluing this on top of my card base here. Then I'm going around with my ink and glue this on. So that I have my base ready. And then I have this die cut here with the bear, and I'm going around with some ink, and then do the same to the balloons. And then I will stick the balloons behind the bear and glue them on, and they will stick out of that card, but that's gonna be fine. And I also cut away on the bear the handle of that basket. I thought it's kind of odd looking, so I just cut it away. So that's what you do when you have a die cut. If you don't like something, just cut it away. So here I'm cutting like a little slit into this arms, because I wanted that arm to hang over that sentiment. And that sentiment comes from a die cut that I just cut out with a circle die. Now I'm adding my little bear here. He's like holding his arm on top of the circle, and I'm gluing that together. And then I'm adding foam tape and add this on top. And here you can see how this will stand. I think that's a very cute card. It's a smaller card, on the smaller side, but that is okay. I'm adding a little bit of glossy accent to the nose of the bear and some glitter, stickles. And here is the finished card. And for this card, I also created my own envelope, and a 6x4 envelope was fine for that. Now for my next card here, I want to do again a slimline, mini slimline card. So I'm starting out with this piece of pattern paper that looks like wood, it's like weaved wood, and I'm roughing up the edge here. And this time I'm using frayed burlap to go around the edge, and then I am gluing this to my card base, and I cut it a little bit smaller than the card. And because I wanted to pick up that red that's in the flower as an accent color, and I didn't have it handy like a red cardstock, so I'm just using one of the Catherine Pooler ink and just inked up a piece of white cardstock. Now I didn't want to waste the ink that's on my sheet here, so I'm just putting a little bit more ink, and then spray it with water, and I'm picking up the ink with tap that I had laying around. I don't want to waste the ink, and I can use that tap in or this piece in a different project. Now I'm adding also a little bit of water to the piece here. Those Catherine Pooler's inks are water reactive. And then I'm trying to think how I will cut this piece out. I just want it to be an accent color, so I didn't want it to be a big block of red. So I had some tree that I pulled, and I decided to go for the one that's from Paper Rose, and I cut this out, and I will use this piece as my accent piece here. Now I have this frame with the face, and I glued this on a piece of white cardstock because I wanted it to make it more kind of a chipboard piece, because I only wanted to use the frame. So I cut away the inside, and then I'm inking up the edge so you don't see that white. And then I'm gluing on my red piece here, and then I'm adding my frame with some foam tape right on top, and I'm on the edge there. And then I have this flower, and this will match perfectly the other red, and I'm adding that right on top of the frame here. And I do the same with those other flowers, top and bottom. And I stamped out a sentiment this time, and I used the same stamp pad that I used before, and I thought, like, hello friend, that's a nice sentiment for this card. And I had those little buttons, and I wanted to use them as a little embellishing, so I put some foam tape behind them and stuck them right in a triangle to my card. Now I'm adding some glitter drops, glitter drops all around for some sparkle, and also like a piece of the die cut piece that looks like a tape. And here's the finished card. Card 10. So for my last card here, I wanted to do something with this big bicycle that came in the set. So I decided I'm gonna make this an easel card. So I just took a regular card base, and then the front I just scored them and folded it towards me. So I have my card base, and then I use my wavy ruler here, and I cut out a piece with this green cardstock, and again I'm using those flowers, the pattern paper with the flowers, and I'm doing the same here. I'm ripping myself a piece with waves, and then I am want to add this to the front, so when it stands up you can have this wavy edge. You see that wavy edge? So I'm adding this green now to the bottom. That's gonna be kind of my ground where my bicycle gonna stand up. And then for the inside of the card, I'm using just the other piece of that pattern paper, and I measured this and cut it out, and then went around the edge and glued this into the inside of the card. And do the same with the other piece. I'm going around there, and then I glue this in, and I cut it a little bit smaller as you can see, and then I'm gluing on the other piece to the top, and my bicycle gonna be sitting on top of that grassy green, well, not pattern paper. Now I'm gluing this on. I'm making sure the glue is only on the bottom half of this piece here. Then I'm using my bike, and I make sure the bike is so it doesn't come over the edge so of the card, so you have no problem putting this in an envelope. And I put some foam tape behind it and stick this on there. And then you can see how that stands up, and I put my sentiment, and again I'm used one of the vellums, and I framed this on a piece of silver cardstock, and I used that as my stand. So now for the back, for the part where you actually write your message, I used that die again that I used earlier, and I cut just a piece of white cardstock, and I will glue this to the back of the card. So this will be the part where you write your message, and then when you stand it up, it's just like a little bike. And I'm adding some glitter for final embellishment, and here you can see again, there it stands. It's a very simple card, but I really like it. Now here you can see all the cards again. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got some inspiration. If you have that block laying around, just pull it out and do some cards with it. I hope I inspired you to do that. Please leave me comments, or if you have questions, just don't hesitate to contact me. I will be happy to answer you. Of course, if you want to let me know which card you like the most, or maybe if you let me know which card you want to do yourself, recreate, that would be something I'm really interested in. So yeah, that's it for now. I am wishing you all a great summer and stay well, and I see you in my next video. Until then, bye.